Nothing feels better than to jump onto the Just Create SMP and your iron farm is not overflowed and broken. And surprisingly, I'm doing quite well in the iron department. Oh boy. Today though, the factory must grow, as I have my eyes set on full andesite automation and doing it in a very specific way, a way to technically avoid lava, even though eventually we will need lava. Now, one big thing that I'm going to need for this massive assembly line of machines is going to be precision mechanisms. And that's because what we're going to be doing next is going to require Frogports and factory gauges. And to make this process easier on me for crafting all of the supplies for the stuff I'm going to need, well, I might as well make some lime dye fluid, which I did add a pump into the back of these because these do work even with water in them. They'll work with just about anything. But I throw this in here and we get ourselves some interesting lime dye liquid, and we need enough for an entire bucket. And so slime is going to be something that we need a lot for making Frogports, right? So having this, we can now make crafting slime a whole lot easier by placing it in front of the fan. And now I can just on demand make slime balls. And currently I'm getting my wheat from the community spawn area. I just take some of this wheat flour from crushing wheat and we wash it and turn it into balls. And then we take the dough, yes, the dough, and toss that in here. And that will get automatically dyed, or crafted with dye essentially, which should turn it directly into a slime ball. Look at that! Out of everything, slime balls are one of the things that are pretty easy for us to get our hands on, as you can see. But what about precision mechanisms? Last time we had to handcraft them, and that was not something I wanted to do again. For this, I think it's time to whip out one of the oldest tricks from the ChosenArchitect Create Handbook. And that is going to be setting up the never get stuck or overflowed precision mechanism assembler. To do this, you're going to need a 7 wide area. Inside of that, we'll place in a 5 wide belt. On top of that, we're going to place right in the center deployers that are facing into each other. Behind this, we're going to place a 3 long vault. And then checking the contents of said vault is going to be a threshold switch. And then the basic settings for the threshold switch is set it to item stacks, because each of these will convert into item stacks whenever we go to process them. And whenever it hits 16 inside of that vault, I want it to make sure and not allow anything onto this belt. The way we're going to handle that is by using this threshold switch to apply a redstone signal to this funnel. Then we need to formulate a loop. So we're going to be looping by using this vault, and it's going to be going in this direction, which means that we need to filter the incoming item, so that way we make sure that this only takes in incomplete mechanisms. And then over here, we are just going to simply output and make sure that outputs the thing out of the vault. Then finally, what we want is our completed mechanisms and or broken things that actually aren't mechanisms at all, if it does fail. Then I'll get to the filtering in just a bit once we get this powered up, but I do want to add some storages up to the top, so that way we have a place to put like bulk supplies, like if we're doing cogs, then also large cogs, and then our iron nuggets. And speaking of those things, we should add them to the filter here, which also gives us a nice little visual of what goes where. I just need to get some power to it, so I got power running through the back, and then this basically just channels up power through an encased chain drive, and then we'll power our deployer just by slapping on a gearbox. Now, getting ourselves a filtered item, I mean, we just need to basically send in a gold sheet. And as of right now, it's going to sit here waiting, but I do want to use this as a filter by saying, hey, only allow incomplete precision mechanisms, which is this very specific item, by the way, to go in. And so anything that is that will loop through. And then if it is a completed, which is a completely different item, it actually goes into the output. So let's test this bad boy out. I'm going to throw in all of the ingredients that are required for this setup. And then I'm going to go ahead and send out my precision mechanism. And I believe this will go straight through the next stage. All of it's going to loop through and then send out a completed precision mechanism once it is done. And so we can throw in a bunch at a time. And like I said, once it reaches 16 of these individual stacked items inside of here, it's going to stop doing the thing, and then it's going to send a set through. Or at least that's the goal. You just need to make sure you have enough resources for the stuff to craft. With precision mechanisms out of the way, I can now make all of those fancy factory gauges. But before we actually need them, there's still a bit more we need to do. I think the first step of this is going to be taking this chest of clay and actually swapping this chest out, and instead doing the same thing that we're doing over here. compacting. This is where I need to shut off all the power to this and work on extending this belt out quite a bit. We can always shrink it later. And by the way, yeah, you can increase it by right-clicking a belt onto here and then or using a wrench to shrink it. Also want to make sure to filter this. So this is just going to send on along the line, and then we can have this right up next to another container. And yeah, we can just fill it just like we did over here with our iron. Now we can take the rest of our processes that's happening here, which is going to be overflow sand, and we can now process that overflow sand. And we shouldn't really encounter an issue with overflow clay. It's going to take a really long time before that happens. And hopefully by then we're processing it into some other things anyways. Now, ultimately, I need to make nether quartz. And the reason I need to make nether quartz is because I need to make diorite. And the reason I need to make diorite is so that way I can then craft it with more cobblestone to create andesite. And this is the way that you can do it without actually using lava. And while it is a little bit more complicated to do, honestly, not needing to go after that lava is fantastic. Now to talk about the processing of the rest of our sand. This is where I'm going to bring our belt up just high enough to be able to have this whole thing set up on the same level as the rest of our chests. And so to do this is increasing now up vertically, and then that is going into the barrel, which will then get placed down and work just like the other fans that are like in our workshop. This is going to work the exact same way. Everything that drops on here will now be converted into soul sand. And the cool part about this setup is, well, you can just dump as much as you want in here and it will always just keep converting, which is good and all, but this will ultimately lead to an overflow failure, which is not something we want to do. We don't want to be dumping items all over the ground. And I think the best way to handle this is much like we're handling it over here by voiding it inside of a lava cauldron. One of the best ways to automatically turn on and off like something like a brass funnel once an inventory is filled is the threshold switch yet again. So we are going to be checking the fill state of a chest, and if we know how many slots are in here, it should be a lot easier to handle. So there's technically 27 slots inside of our inventory, and this is 27 times 2. And so it can hold 54 stacks. Now by default, we know that a funnel is shut off when it has a redstone signal. So already what I really want to do is invert this signal to make sure it stays locked until a threshold is met. And then I'm going to switch this over to stacks, and I'm going to bring up this bottom number. So what I want to do is bring this all the way up till the top number reaches 54 while using my scroll wheel. So we'll bring this all the way up to 54, just like that. And so that is the entire capacity of this chest. And so as of right now, it is emitting a redstone signal, but as soon as a stack goes in there and equals 54, it will then dump a stack. And this will prevent overflow. And then I'll just use a brass funnel and making sure that sends out into lava. And with this, we've now automated soul sand. And now we can turn the entire system back on because that's basically everything, even though we are really reaching that stress capacity here. Now, after setting up this process, well, we still have to process one more time because ultimately what I'm trying to get out of this is gold and of course quartz. So I have an idea for this. I'm thinking I can just use a water wheel, and if I get the water wheel spinning in a certain direction, I can just power a belt and then use an encased chain drive to carry it up into another barrel that's going to be right next door, making this really compact. And this system doesn't have to be fast. We don't need it to be like super speed. We just simply need it to be able to carry stacks of items at a time. And I mean, that looks pretty good. Let's waterlog the leaves here, and now we have a washing station. This is great. Now we'll need to switch this out for a brass funnel, but just as proof of concept for right now, I just want to show one at a time going out. Otherwise, we're going to get overflowed quickly. Now for the processing and sorting of gold, I want to store gold in this chest. So what I need to do is, well, filter specifically gold out of here. Yeah, not that. So we're going to say only send gold nuggets out. Everything else should stay in here, no problem whatsoever. And I've used some large water wheels on the back because we are kind of limited on our overall stress capacity after getting all of our other stuff put together today. And to be perfectly honest, it kind of looks cool having these water wheels here, and it doesn't really need to spin that fast. And that is basically all of the base resources that we're going to get out of this cobblestone, at least for right now. There are some other strings that we could do later on, but as far as base resources, this is it. Oh, and one more thing, I almost forgot cobblestone. Yes, we are going to want cobblestone to go inside here, and route around because we will need cobblestone inside of an inventory. With all my ducks in a row, this is where the packagers come into play, and frogports and factory gauges. Before we can do anything frogport related, we've got to get a chain conveyor hooked up, and I've aligned this just perfectly. I think this is gonna be more than enough, and we do have really nice configs on here that allow our frogs to reach a much further distance than normal. But ideally, we want it to span most of this area. Now, this is where things are gonna get really fun. I need to get cobble from this chest, and I need to send it along this chain line all the way over here and store it inside of this crafter. And this is where I've come up with a special solution for automating most things, blocks and things like that, things that use simplified recipes and only use a couple of things. I have created a solution that allows you to work this crafter easily. So the way that this system is going to work is we are going to tell our stock keepers, which is going to be a factory gauge, how many to keep in stock. So we just need to build our recipe, which is going to be diorite, for example, in this setup. And so we're going to have 2 stacks of cobblestone, and then we're going to say and always keep 1 in here, which is going to produce this diorite. Our part about crafters is that they will lose kind of the situation that they're being sent items. So we do have to make sure and maintain stock at all times inside this crafter. And so this will be a perfect example. If I, for example, take half these stacks out, this will be a good example of how we can keep something in stock. So we can use a packager here. We're going to place a frogport, and I'm going to have the frogport linked up to the chain. And this is going to be set to receive packages. Now, as of right now, we don't have to do anything special. It just needs to exist. Over here on the cobble, I am going to place another packager, and then this is also going to have a frogport on top of it. So we'll get that nice and placed in. And this is going to be a send only as of right now. Now, this is where the complexities of this come into play, because we're going to be diving into factory gauges and just one of the many features of factory gauges, and that is keeping an inventory stocked from another inventory. And so this stock link is going to go on the front, and this is going to allow me with a factory gauge to read the contents of this inventory from somewhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some cobblestone, take this factory gauge and carry it all the way over here. And then I'm going to click it onto this. So what this is going to do is whenever I put this in, it's going to tell me how many cobble are actually inside of this crafter. And then I can say, well, if a certain amount is not in there, I need to pull some from the inventory that I just linked it to. But much like the mail system, we need to give it an address. Otherwise, it's not going to know what inventory or frogport to send it to. So this is where we go about naming our frogport, in which I'm just going to simply name it cobble to diorite. Now, once I have it labeled, I can simply click here and the dropdown should appear because it is connected to that frogport. And so now it's the moment of truth. I technically need 2 stacks to be inside of here, right? As of right now, there's only technically a combination of 1 stack, but we do need 2 full stacks to always be in here. So I'll set this to stack mode and set it to 2. And what should happen is a pulse request should take place for the cobble that then gets sent and received. And now inside of here, we have 2 stacks that are in here. And if it does lose any particular amount, a new request will be sent for the amount that is required in order to get it back up to 2 stacks. But now here's the tricky part. We need to detect when the other item goes in, and we need to send a redstone signal when that happens. And we need to send a very specific amount of items, specifically 2 nether quartz. So using this same method, I'm going to have nether quartz on the back, but back here, I'm going to set this to exactly 2, so it only sends 2 in. The way that we're going to send this redstone is whenever we accept the items and pull the items in, by the way, that should send a new request to fill this back up. Whenever these items do go through, we can actually detect when things go through this funnel. And so the way we're going to do that is with a smart observer, and I'm going to read when an item has gone through here. So we need this pointed into it. And then all we have to do is make sure to get a redstone signal to be sent to this crafter. And that should be just simply done with some redstone. And I believe that redstone can go in here. I think so. For getting all of this set up, basically the exact same thing that I did before. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I am going to send a request, and we are going to say, okay, go ahead and keep 1 stack in stock that should pull a request for the quartz. That goes in. But yes, as I was expecting, the redstone signal is not being fed into the crafter. Something like a redstone torch should work. We just have to make sure to place in 2 items in here. That should then trigger, and then this is going to pulse on and off, which that will carry the signal into the crafter. Notice it had already sent 1 craft, which is that one right there. And so if I go ahead and throw these in, you can see that is going to toggle on and off, and the items are entering in and being pulsed, which is exactly what we want to see. Now with diorite done, it's time for andesite, and this can also be done in a crafter, could be also done in a mixer, but to save on stress, let's just do it in a crafter. It's pretty simple. Now, just like our other one, because this is a 2x2 craft, we're going to keep a certain amount in stock here, and then this one, we want to make sure that the item that goes in is limited to 1. That is exactly what we want. And just like we did on the other side, I have my cobblestone, so I need to go all the way over here and link this up to our cobblestone gauge, so we can link a completely new one. Place that down on here, and then we need to, I don't know, we can pull one out of here. We'll say 1 cobblestone. That should pull a full request, by the way, just for 1. That should enter into the package. Look at that. It's so cool seeing this work. But yes, we'll place this in, and I already have this named cobble to andesite, and so we'll make sure to select that destination. And then for this one, we only want to keep 1 stack, which is going to pull another request. Now, my only fear with this setup is that it's not going to be fast enough to keep up with the cobble. If so, then we have to come up with another solution, which I don't think would be too hard. We would just need to raise this system up like 3 blocks, essentially, which would probably put it equal with this, and then have a barrel as a inventory that is then sending into this. Now, because of our new container here, well, we're going to need a new Frogport that is going to go on it, and then this is going to have a new stock link. Now, this is going to control the one in the back, but yes, lots of frogs doing lots of different things, all sending things down an assembly line. The one in the back, I'm going to name diorite to andesite, then link to this factory gauge, and then make sure to place this on here, and this is what we are going to be pulling and keeping in stock here. So we'll select that, select the package destination yet again, and then this one, I'm only going to send 1 at a time as of right now, just to sort of test this out, because we do have the stuff in stock. We put the 1 in, you can see andesite's gonna be crafted into the chest, and then all I have to do is say pull 1. So it should do a request of 1 as of right now. That gets picked up, goes in, and there's our andesite, and then we can continue that loop. So with that started, let's also do this one. It's where we just set this one to request items of 2 inside of the barrel for now. We may want to increase the amounts later. I just want to make sure that everything can keep up. So now the fun begins, trying to dial this in and seeing kind of if this can even keep up. So if I set that to 1 stack and I set this to maybe request, I don't know, 16 at a time, I mean, this one really doesn't matter. It just, we need to pull all of the diorite out. It should just start crafting it a bit faster. And then over here, we can play around with, well, how much of the actual soul sand we have to make sure we're keeping up with our nether quartz. So now we're about to make andesite alloy. I am pretty excited. Now, I am currently expelling and turning into iron, as of right now, our iron nuggets. But the goal is to keep a certain amount in stock. And then send extra to be able to make iron itself. So I do want to take this, and this is going to be my iron nugget stock. We're going to come back to this later, and we're going to work on basically making sure that we can keep a certain amount in stock. That's going to be the big sort of factor, using a lot of mechanisms like this one, like the threshold switch. But over here, I have made myself a little module. We have this leading into a mixer that is being powered from the main system, but basically utilizing all of our stress. And so the final thing that we're going to need to do is we are going to need to set a couple of names. One is going to be for andesite and one is going to be for nuggets. Now, moment of truth, I'm going to link 2 different ones. This one is going to be linked up to the iron, and then this one is going to be linked to my andesite. We're going to place both of them down and program them down together. These are labeled, so we can actually go in here and click. I can set the filter. So that is going to be iron. This one is going to be the andesite. Perfect. Select our destination, just like so, and then tell it to keep a stack in stock. And then that should pull a request from andesite, pull a request from iron nuggets, send into the mixer, and then that is going to start producing it, and then we just need to pull off the completed product, which is going to look like this. And that, my friends, is andesite alloy, technically automated. Oh my goodness, there's a creeper here to ruin the party. How dare it? Really got to make sure to get rid of this guy. Wow, that could have been a disaster after setting all of that up. But now with our andesite alloy, the start of the andesite age has now begun, and just look at the chain of all of the products that can be made off of one cobblestone generator. Now, I was wondering what would happen if this system did back up, and I'm glad I kind of waited, because if the crafter can't send into an inventory, it just starts spewing it all over the place. And that's definitely not something I want. And so just like before, we're going to set this to stack, scroll all the way up, make sure it's inverted. That way it only dumps into here when it is full, and then we shouldn't encounter that issue anymore. Now the iron nuggets, once we have enough andesite alloy, I want it to just continue to produce regular iron. That is the ultimate goal here. So I have this. Once it has detected that, I need it to basically unlock this hopper. So with its inverted settings here, scrolled all the way up, the idea is that will then send a redstone signal, which is going to constantly hold a redstone signal, keeping that hopper or keeping that funnel over there locked always. And so we can set something like this. Let's see, I have andesite now going all the way down here. So yes, once this backs up, then we just need to take our settings from here and move it over here. By the way, you can use a clipboard to actually copy settings from these. There we go, just got a clipboard. And so I just copied the settings by right-clicking, and then we'll go over to a new link. And you don't even need to have the items in your inventory. So I'll just simply shift right click. It says right here. So right click to copy, left click to paste. Sorry, not shift, left. There we go. And so our settings are applied. With an empty hand, we'll put it in receive mode. So now this andesite funnel is locked. So it'll stop sending iron down here, which should shut the production of this off. It'll no longer produce. We don't have to worry about overflow for this. And everything should be fine. Then iron is the only thing we'd have to worry about overflow on. But even then, there really wouldn't be overflow. Because what would happen is the iron would then be locked in this position, meaning that flint would be sent on down the line and voided, which means sand would be sent more often, and it would just speed up this process down here, which ultimately voids anything anyways. Now with this done, now is the time to actually start decorating the foundation. So yet again, roll some more funky music. I tell you, after all of that, I am definitely going to need to stretch my legs. My goodness. Now, I still have a lot more to do, and the goal here is to make the bottom of this all kind of fit in with that darker tuff and sort of blend it in. I'm just kind of laying it out bit by bit here. But yeah, the goal is for the bottom section to be a bit more green tinted. And I do feel like the tuff, like the vanilla version of the tuff, is a bit on the greener side. Down at the bottom, I'll just use some tuff brick, laying that down in there like this. And with this, you now might know exactly what my theme is going to be this season. Yes, a Bioshock-esque theme. Or aka retrofuturism. That's another way to call it. Now I do think this is going to make way more sense once the rest of the structure is in, as this is literally just the small bottom layer. The goal is for this to continue increasing up. There's going to be a massive section that is going to be right here with a nice dome on the top. I've got some ideas for this entire build, which I think is going to look incredibly good. But now you may be wondering, Chosen, is this Mall 2.0? And to that, I'm going to just say, possibly. My upper layers are going to utilize all of the base resources that we are generating here. And I've also got to come up with a solution for getting my logs from their destination over to here, because we can't do anything without having wood. So yes, this might technically be the start of our auto crafting facility. I mean, we could have an elevator right here that takes you up and down to the different auto crafting floors. And then, I don't know, maybe down here, we could set up market stalls. You know, if we plan on ever selling anything. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Never would I sell my auto crafted goods. But if anything, and if I decide not to sell anything, I will still have all of the things that give me access to making anything I want, which is the big goal of setting up any kind of auto crafting facility. And let's say I did call it the Mall again. What would be a better name for it than Mall 2.0? I don't know. I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. This is always a very large project right when I get started, and is going to take a lot of effort, especially for getting the Andesite age automated. So if watching this process is something that you're going to be interested in and potentially learning how all of the create mechanics work, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. And without further ado, it's time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. That amazing thanks is going to go out to Zero Psych. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so very much, making episodes like these possible in the first place. And guys, I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.